Hey everyone, welcome to PC Perspective. Today we're going to take a look at the new Corsair Obsidian 350D chassis. It's actually a Micro-ATX or Mini-ITX chassis for 99 bucks that carries a lot of the Obsidian feature set we've come to love. A quick walk around on the Obsidian 350D reveals some of the similar stylings we're used to seeing on Corsair cases and some new ones as well. The front panel actually has a pretty nice brushed metal finished. Up front you've got two USB 3.0 ports, your power button's actually in the middle, and then you have your audio connections and a reset button that's a little bit harder to hit, as it should be. Two 5.25-inch bays. If you take this out, it's click removable. You've got a fan filter. You can actually put one 140 or two 120 millimeter fans. It comes with a 140, which is nice. And again, the fan filter makes cleaning and kind of maintaining the chassis much easier. If we look on this side, we have a window, which is actually really quite big, right? It kind of takes up the majority of the side panel real estate, which is nice. It's raised off the ground, as most Corsair cases, I think all Corsair cases have been so far. And when we look at the back, you'll see one of the reasons why. We then have this removable air filter that comes from the power supply intake fan. Looking at the back, you've got removable water cooling areas there. No rubber grommets, but they are removable for that. You can have a 120 millimeter fan here. You've got 5 expansion bays, so you can actually support 2 dual slot graphics cards, even if there is a little bit of space between them, and then you have your bottom mounted power supply. This side, nothing but a door there, but let's go ahead and remove some things, remove these doors, and take a look at what else the 350D is offering. So right away you can see out on the back you have a big opening for the power supply, I'm sorry, not the power supply, the processor back plate. Basically any motherboard, especially a Micro-ATX motherboard, you're going to be able to change the CPU cooler without having to take the board out. You've got lots of grommeted cable routing holes here that are pretty much perfectly placed for installation of any type of board. Flip it around, actually up top, do want to point this out. You can see you actually have support for both a 120 and, I'm sorry, a 280 and a 240 water cooler, top-mounted water cooler, which is pretty nice. Usually cases this small don't support that. So let's look on this side, and we start to see some of the other features. We have 2 bottom-mounted 3.5-inch hard drive bays. They kind of have the sleds or trays, whatever you're used to seeing, and they do support 2.5-inch SSDs and hard drives as well. But maybe more interesting is this area right here. This is actually specifically 3 bays for 2.5-inch drives, and it kind of comes out, if I can do it from this angle, slides out this way so that you can actually take an SSD like this and you just slide it in like that, and it locks in place. Now you have access to the power and data connections, and then it mounts back in here like that, and you can access the cables from the backside. So it's actually a pretty interesting way, and if you need the space for some reason, and you only need to fill 1 SSD, these are removable, so you can just snap those off and save up some space. You've got your 5.25-inch bays here. The only caveat with this top-mounted water cooler is the tubing, and if you go with like the Corsair H110 or H100, it's going to go into the area of the 5.25-inch bay just a little bit, and you'll probably lose at least one of those bays. So there's a room for 5 fans in here. There's a lot of cooling opportunity. You don't have to have it. Like I said, it includes the back 120 and the front 140. You've got 2 of the fan filters, which is nice. It's small, only supports Mini-ITX and Micro-ATX motherboards, so don't try to bring your full-size ATX gear up in here. And it's pretty solidly built. Everything's got rounded edges, no sharp edges to cut your fingers while you're building it. But let's go ahead and actually, we are going to put together a system, a fairly powerful system, to demonstrate what you can put inside the 350D. So here we have our sample build with the Corsair 350D. I'm going to go ahead and take off the panels here and show you exactly which components we were able to fit inside and how well it worked and if it was easy or not. And actually, through the build process, it was surprisingly easy for as small a case as it is, and I'll show you the back side as well as the front to indicate, how clean you can get it. Most Corsair cases, they still are doing a very good job of maintaining the cable routing holes. Everything looks clean. If I turn it here, actually, you can see just at a quick glance, it actually looks pretty clean for as much hardware as we have in here. So let's go ahead and flip this over. And we have two EVGA GTX 680s. These are actually 4 gigabyte models, not that it really matters for this particular case, but SLI graphics card, Micro-ATX motherboard. We have a hard drive installed. We have an SSD installed. We have a Corsair 1050 power supply, so more than enough power that you would need for a system usually of this caliber, this size. We've got our motherboard in there. This is actually an AMD motherboard, but any platform would work. But I just wanted to show you we had the H100i installed here as well. It does kind of block off the 5 1/4 inch bays. Had I rotated it 180 degrees, it might have worked out better. We could, these tubes could have been rotated a little bit nicer. You should have access to one of these. But everything looks really clean. It's a little bit tougher to get the cables around. It's a little bit tougher to get the ATX power installed or the auxiliary ATX power installed. But everything else worked as you would expect. If I flip it over, you can see the okay cable routing job that we did here. This one is always a stretch getting into the auxiliary cable up here in the corner. This little mess, you could clean it up a little bit better if you just spend a little bit more time, but there's enough cable routing areas for you to keep that open and keep it tidy. You can see the back plate here, completely accessible on this design as well. So it actually turned out to be a fairly easy process. No major complaints with the build. Snap that back in there. And I think most people would be surprised how powerful of a system they could put into the 350D. So my takeaway with the Corsair Obsidian 350D is actually pretty good. For $99, you get a Micro-ATX chassis that can support 280 millimeter radiators up top, a 140 on the back. You've got room for 5 fans. You can build a pretty powerful system in a relatively small case without going all the way down to this Mini-ITX chassis that can be way more constrictive in what you can actually build and how hard it is to work inside of it. The inclusion of the window is nice. The filters are nice. 10 or 20 bucks off of this would have made it a steal for $99. It's more, it's still reasonable, but not as good as maybe we would have hoped. But for people that like small case designs, this is the antithesis of the 900D, then definitely take a look at the Corsair Obsidian 350.